I'm going to go ahead and run with this silhouette today. Kind of dig that one. And I'm going to go ahead and progress from there. And today is very much, it's very much a let's start sculpting, getting features in. Yeah, I'm actually having issues with my keyboard right now. So let's see if I can get that going. All right, it says it's connected. Ah, there we go. Awesome. I'm going to push through some of your guys' comments so that you can see what each other are saying. So Marcos, you're saying that you're working on a couple other pieces. So are you going to try and tackle more than one? You want to do a dragon really badly. Well, I'm not going to dissuade you from it, and I'll support you in it. So, I mean, I'd say, yeah, as soon as you have another block out, post it up, and I'll take a look at it. Shoot me an email at Damien@UArtsy, and that way I can give you feedback right away, so that I know that it's up there right away. I mean, I'll be checking in the mornings, but if you happen to, yeah, I mean, just post it up and let me know, and I'll take a look at it. And then I'll take a look at what you guys have posted today. In fact, I'm going to pull it up right now before we even start, so we can. I just want to see where you guys are at. I'm excited. So let me get a new window going here. And let's go over to UArtsy. How do you guys like the new course layout page, by the way? Yeah, you guys digging it? A little bit cleaner? Nice large thumbnails right there on the front of the page. All right, I'll give you guys a little bit of feedback right now on what you posted, but I do want to get into sculpting out today, so maybe we might be running a little bit past. Right, awesome, Ash. In Photoshop again? For shame, for shame. Christian, that's looking tight. How do you feel about this? I'm just getting first impressions here. Oh, there you go, Ash. Got a little block out in ZBrush. Simon, let's see, start pulling large images of these up. All right, let's go ahead and start. I like the font. I'm bossing it up. All right, Christian, just off the bat, I'll tell you what. Your silhouette's feeling so much stronger, and it feels really. I mean, it's cool. And now it's a matter of sort of tuning what you have. Like I'm looking. at this back leg, and while I like it, I like what's going on here, there's something in here that maybe, I know this is kind of a vague statement, but this needs to be looked at. Something in here feels awkward. And I don't know if it feels like the leg is coming out here and then coming back here, and there's some webbing here, and it's not reading 100% clearly. But I do like that, I don't know, you're starting to speak a language across the character, right? So, I mean, I'm seeing some design language in here. Although I think that you could probably tie this in a little bit better with what you've done up here. I'd say mimic some of the same lines that you have in here. I mean, I'm saying that, and you have a little bit, but I think you could take it further. Like, and actually, maybe it's more pulling some of the elements you have down here into here. So, like, I'm looking at like these little spikes, these peaks, these little sharp points. That might be something you can incorporate into here, and maybe do that in sort of a flamboyant way. It might be something you can incorporate in the face, because the face right now is very much getting a little lost amongst everything else. So I'd say maybe it's just a matter because it's a block out and you decided to go in a little bit into detail here and a little bit into here. But yeah, I think that this needs a little bit of attention. Unless I'm reading this wrong, unless this is an eye, you know what I mean? And I'm looking at something very much more abstract here. But yeah, I think probably the better suggestion is for what I was talking about before, is to add some of these peaks, these little spiky points, into these leaf-like shapes. Awesome, thank you, Christian. I'm just going to push some of these comments through so you guys can all see them. No, this is actually, I was going to say, this is a really nice element. This, I mean, it's very Final Fantasy. You know, it's cool. I like it, and I really do like your progress. But that's my quick crit for you right now. Let me jump over to Ash. Now look at your ZBrush block out. So Ash, are you? Yeah, no problem, Christian. Ash, are you still having issues, sort of like doing something quickly inside of ZBrush as far as sketching out? I only say that because I saw you jump back into Photoshop with this guy, or did you start in Photoshop and then jump into ZBrush? You started in Photoshop. All right. Well, I have some other tips for you, aside from, hey, just practice more. Keep it really low poly. Like, keep your Dynamesh resolution really low. Stay in Dynamesh. Keep it super low poly. Think about broad strokes. Don't think about, oh, I need to put this little tiny detail here. I got to get that nostril just right. I got to get, don't worry about that stuff. Right? Just go, maybe you're working with 10,000 polys. Maybe you're working with 20,000 polys. Right? And that's all you're sculpting out at 40. I wouldn't go over 100. Right? Now, I like, back to your piece now, I like what you have, but I'm going to go over to your sketch, because I really like what you have in your sketch, and I think that you haven't translated that yet successfully inside of ZBrush. Like, when I look at this doesn't have the same vibe as this. Now, think about what I just said. Keep it low poly, keep it broad strokes, right? And that's really what where it's at. I mean, if you look at your Photoshop sketch, what are you doing? You're doing broad strokes, right? Are you really going in and defining that nostril? Looks like you maybe came in here and did a little bit of detail work in here, right? Trying to figure out what you wanted to do. But everything else is really broad and loose. Just exercise that same loose feeling inside of ZBrush. And you're not going to do it if you have, like, you know, this mesh looks like he's maybe 900,000 polys, maybe 1 million even. Take it down to under 100,000 or 100,000 max, right? And just do what you can there. Constantly remesh, constantly rotating around. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how much it is, but it looks like a lot more. I'm just looking at these really smooth shapes here, but I'm not very close on the model. It might only be like 400,000 or something. But I mean, bring it really low. All right. My suggestions, let's see. My suggestions are reduce, if you're going for scale, like if this is the actual scale that you're looking at here, I would reduce the size of the face by maybe 15%. I would take these elements on the back and I would scale those up a bit. I would also scale up these elements on his forearm so that they're more prominent. So what that's going to do is, even though the scale, even though you have this nice big scale for this character, what it's going to do is it's going to exaggerate the scale, right? So if you reduce a little bit here, make this recede off into the distance from this perspective. Right, here, let me do an example here. Right, you're sort of forcing perspective. So if I were to take some elements here, and let's say on this guy, scale him up here. And then let's take the head. And let's bring that down a little bit and even push it up. Look what just happened. Right, now it went from feeling big to feeling really big, even though it's not that large. The scale is not big, but it's a little bit of forced perspective in the design, right? You're taking into account that this is going to be seen by a player character from the ground looking up, right? And you're forcing the perspective a little bit just to give it a little bit of more dramatic effect. And I think you have elements that you can do that with. Now, this is anecdotal criticism. What you have overall is good, right? I'd say you can elaborate with some armor pieces and maybe a little bit of jewelry or whatever that might be for this character. Maybe it's, maybe, I don't know, you gotta figure out what would make sense for the scale. Is it going to be, weeping willows that he's wearing his clothing? Is it going to be, is it going to be, like chains and armor? Is that realistic for a creature of his size? I don't know. You have to kind of figure it out. Exactly, Ash. Exactly like the David statue. You have to take in that this is something that's meant to be viewed, right? It's meant to be viewed. It's meant to be experienced. It's not just something static. So hopefully that's a little bit of good advice for you. Is that enough for you to run with? Because honestly, I would just like to see you implement this and then sort of take these little notes here and there and sort of flush this out. When I'm looking at the wings, though, is you definitely have to, I would go with like something that's a little more anatomically correct. You haven't really stated that yet, so I'm not, it's just sort of in the background. I get the idea of what you're going after. All right, cool, Ash. Let's jump over to Simon. Simon, this is crazy. That's my first thought for you. Well, that's a cool concept, Ash. Let's work on that later and see how we can get that implemented. Crazy good or crazy bad? It's crazy good, man. And right now I'm trying to digest it. And what I'll tell you right now, my first impression is that my eyes are going everywhere. So what that's telling me is that while it's cool, and I like the concept of what you're doing, is it needs some tuning in that you need to establish sort of like a first read, second read, third read. Right? There needs, right now, everything, like these legs, what they're doing is the way that they're placed right now, they are sort of they're sort of flattening out the design. Right? I'm looking for a place for my eyes to rest when I'm looking at the side view. When I'm looking, if I was to look at the 3/4, looking at the front, it's a little bit easier to digest, and I like the wild and weird tangents that you've gone off on here. I think it's cool. I like what you've done here in the back, and you kept that spider abdomen, which is cool. But you're losing read. So I'm trying to remember there was these games I used to play on the first Nintendo. And I can't remember the name of the games. It's driving me crazy. But you're in this spaceship going through a cave, and there's so many copies of this game that came out at that time. You're going through a cave system, and you have to fight at the end of each level this weird abstract mutant, sometimes cybernetic creature. And the problem that I had with the design in that game, R-Type, thank you so much. That was killing me. Thank you so much. It was definitely R-Type. So instead of just saying it, let me pull up the R-Type. Now, think back, this is a while back, right? But this is exactly what I'm talking about. So if we look at this design for this boss, and bear with me, I know this is older, I know this is dated, but hopefully you can get the correlation. There are a lot of cool elements to this creature, right? To this boss, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. But there are some issues in the game dynamic. If this were, so like if I were to see this in a film, you can get some really cool stuff in a film out of this. In a game, I think you have to have a little bit of a better read between the head, between what the different parts of the body. The way that R-Type solved it is that parts of these areas would flash and indicate where you need to shoot, right? And that's sort of very much like old school gaming. But I think you have something similar to an R-Type boss here, right? It's becoming very, very abstract, and I think probably establishing a difference in being able to easily differentiate between these legs here. In other words, I'd say probably reduce the height of this back leg even more, so that it's maybe coming down to here. So you see more of the top of the abdomen. bringing this down maybe to the same level as this leg, but it's spreading out further this way. That way you have this leg that's tightened up here, you have this one that's spreading out here, right? That's sort of playing off your soul. Now it's going to give you a big foot stamp or a big footprint for this creature, but that's no problem, right? You throw it just in a giant plane or whatever. I would maybe bring the height of these front legs up, right, so that you can see more of the body and head here, right? You can also see these extra limbs down at the bottom, because I think this is masking off and obstructing your view of the body. So you just have to look at your positioning here. As for the head, you may want to bring it out just a little bit further away from the body, or maybe bring this lower portion, like let the back stay here, but take all of this in the body and bring it down so that it's underneath these legs here, right? So I look from the side view, I could clearly see all this center torso area. In the silhouettes on the other one, you think the fingers could fold together? So you're thinking of these folding together? Three legs with two fingers. I don't know, man. I like what you have. I like what you have here. I wouldn't mess with that. I think that's really cool, and I think it's unique. And I'll tell you what. You know, I went in and started being like, you know what, you should change this, and this is the problem I see. And I didn't really jump in and tell you exactly what I really liked. You have something like from the front here. This is this. You have this shape here in the mouth, which is cool, and it's sort of mimicked by the orientation of your limbs here. Right? I like that. That's very cool. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this animates, because the way that I'm reading this from the front is that these are legs, right? These are legs, and this is more of a hand, right? And this is more of an arm, because that looks like a scapula. It can come through, he can throw that forward, and maybe you might even want to add an extra digit here and an opposable thumb. But keep it in the same language as the rest of the fingers, so that when you're looking at it from a side view, it doesn't look like a hand until it comes out towards the player. That might be something kind of cool, where he could pick something up with that hand and throw it or whatever. All right, I love getting crits, and I love looking at your guys' work. So you guys have some really strong stuff, and I'm so stoked to see your final creatures finished, because you guys are some dope artists. I'm not trying to stroke your egos, but you got some really good ideas, and I want to see it come through. Really, really cool stuff. Well, you know what, the front legs, he could lay those flat, right? So the way that it might work is you could have, like, I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of, like, gameplay. This is how I would see that happening. Like, I made the suggestion without fully explaining it here. Let me go over here. So if this were to be a hand, maybe he feigns like he's faltering, right? Like, he feigns like he's weakening. So his body lowers, his front legs lower, right? And so where they spread out like this, then this swings over and he attacks, right? I'm not really sure if that makes sense, but I could see something like that happening. And maybe, I don't know, you'd have to make some sort of room, maybe bringing these a little bit further apart so that there's enough room for these to rotate over. Because right now, the way the joint looks, it looks like the scapula would collide into each other if you tried to raise his arms completely. Or maybe these come more straight forward and they're not angled outward so much. But there's something you could do with it. You have to play with it. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, stage 2, he transforms, or yeah, I mean, he goes into a second attack pose. Any of those things will work.